All right, good day, everybody. Unfortunately, my time with the iFi Micro Black Label is coming to an end. It's been a very, very good week. I'm very happy with it, but I am going to be very, very sad to see this little black wonder go. Through the course of the week, I did much listening with different devices, and I've kind of got them laid out here. I came up with some good conclusions, I hope. Hopefully they'll be helpful to those of you that are interested in this device. I highly recommend it. I'm going to start out right off with that. I very highly recommend this. I also wanted to thank Jared, our USA rep, who got this out to me, and then Lawrence, who set up the whole tour. Quite the honor to be on this, and I was quite honored to be the very first one in this part of the U.S. with this. Again, this is the iFi Micro iDSD Black Label. Briefly, there's the box again. I think I showed that to you in my unboxing. I tried to keep everything as nice as possible for the people down the road, but this is the main item in there. Held up very well. I will say right off the bat that I was able to get about 12 hours use out of this. I know some people had mentioned on the HeadFi site that with the old Micro that it ate their battery pretty quickly. I can say that did not happen until right at the end, and it wasn't until this was, I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up, but until this was blinking red, which meant it was on critical charge. Yeah, there you can see that it's going red and green right there. So I have pretty much run this out. I will charge it overnight so that the next person who gets this can have a full charge. I did notice too that it drained my iPhone pretty quickly in that state. So in that case it was, but when this is fully charged, I went a good 3-4 hours losing maybe 3 to 4%, maybe 5% on my iPhone. So I was very happy with that. Again, real quickly, here's the front of it. This is where the main action is. Let's see if I can get a better shot of that there. There's the volume pot. It's an analog pot. One thing I noticed late in my session was that right near the end, right before the on-off, or right after it comes on, I got a little bit of the static, and I think that's kind of traditional with volume, with analog volume pots. Now I know my intro, I wasn't sure what this is. This is the 3D switch. So toggle it up, and it gives it the crossover networks in here work and give it a little bit of a I hate to say a holographic, but a good three-dimensional sound. This is where you would use one of the little dongles, little cable, to put it in here if you wanted to hook it directly to your DAP or to your device directly. And then over here is the X-base switch, which I believe I read puts on about 6 dBs. So it's a nice little push with that up. And then this is where you would put, like if you had the 6.3 millimeter headphones, like my Fostex T40s that I use, that's where you'd put it in there. If not, that's where this nice gold plug comes in. And I did use that extensively because when I was using it with my IEMs, plugs in there nice and easily. Nice solid feel, and I pretty much just left it in there, even when I put it in the bag. A word about the bag: it's a nice bag, but it's small. It's very, very snug when you put it in here. And I know I'd mentioned in the opening that you might be able to put a couple of cables in here too. That's probably not going to happen because it is so tight. I wouldn't recommend that because you might end up scratching the surface of the unit itself. On the back, we ended up, let's see, I did investigate a good part of this. We've got the power modes. They recommend starting with Eco, and then you go to the normal if you need a little bit more power, and then the turbo. What I'll say about the turbo is that's got a really, really good push, and that's how I ran my Fostex most of the time. I ended up, when I got my iPhone connection $29.95 for the genuine Apple, which is just a USB on one end, Lightning on the other end. When I ran this through my iPhone, I've got a 6 Plus, so when I ran it out the Lightning port, I did run the Black Label on normal. Without that, when I was just using this, I was able to run it on Eco. So I did use Eco, but I wanted to push the power up. I wanted to see what this unit would do in all of its situations. So most of the time I ran it under normal. Now the iMatch switch is used to fine-tune it a little bit more if you have sensitive headphones or ultra sensitive. And what I found is that I left it off. I left it off because it kind of dampened it. I don't know if that's the right term, but it toned it down to where I just left it off, and I messed with the volume more than anything. So most of the time I ran this in normal. I ran this in normal when I was running my iFi-Audio Novas. And then I ran it in normal, or sometimes I ran it in turbo with low volume when I was running my my cheaper 10 Mac Pros. I really like these headphones. $21. These are a steal. Very good little headphones. A little bit better bass than the Novas, but the Novas are, well, by far a better headphone. So when I was running this with out of my iPhone with this cable, and then the Novas, I was running it on normal, and then I played with, and it was kind of song dependent, whether I used the 3D up or off, but I left the bass on most of the time. The Novas are a little bit bass shy for my taste. That doesn't mean that they don't have good bass. They have very good bass, and I did write that in my review of the Nova for the HeadFi site. But I liked leaving it up, and I liked playing with the volume pot to get the sound that I wanted out of there. Let's see. Other than that, I guess it comes down to the sound. I would say that my favorite setup with this is the one I would use most of the time is right out the back, and then I'd hook it right up to my iPhone, and then I ran either the music I had downloaded on there through iTunes, or I use Amazon Music quite a bit. I just cleaned that. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty. Again, with it this way, I did not strap it on. I did not use the straps, but I ran it in normal with both switches up, with the bass and the 3D. The sound the music that came out of that, I was very, very impressed with. Good full sound. Kind of brought these out a little bit, but not as much as they would. The ones that really shined in this setup were the 10 Mac Pros. These things just absolutely came to light in this. And when I ran it first, before I had this, I ordered this cable this week and it just came in. But running the regular 3.5 out of the front and then hooking it up to the headphone jack on the iPhone, I was just absolutely blown away with the sound of this. Just absolutely fantastic sound. So I'd have it hooked up like this with that on there, and then I hooked the headphones in there. And hopefully you'll read my review when I post it on HeadFi, but about the first 2 pages of that, or first several paragraphs, deal with this setup right here. It was just an absolutely incredible listening experience. It was one of the best experiences I've had. Now, it is kind of tricky pulling that out. You could pull that just like I did. So then you just grab that and separate it. Put those aside. I was able to get better sound, and that kind of makes sense, hooking it through the USB port, the digital output in the back. And that makes sense. This does draw a little bit more power. When I ran this setup, tried putting it on backwards. When I ran this setup, I enjoyed the Novas more. This gave it a little bit fuller sound, like I mentioned. Not quite the best sound quality of my listening, but still just a very good sound, very pleasant. This is that, and this was the setup that if I were to take this with me, like if I were to actually have this amp and take it with me to school or to work, which is a school, I would run this setup and I'd bring my Novas. This would be my most the one I'd use the most. I'd also throw these into the 10 Max because they are just a really nice little setup. The one that gave the best sound quality, though, and that makes sense, is I hooked up my little iFi-Audio X3 version 2. I ran it out of line out, so all controls came through the iFi-Audio. Sorry, not the iFi-Audio, the iFi. Losing all control from this, but that's okay because that meant this, the DAC inside of this, and then the switches I was able to use that to control it, and it worked really, really well. Not that this isn't a bad setup, but I think that it worked better with this. So I did have to run this out the front, and then I ran line out. Give me just a second. And then I was able to run this. I was just listening to this a couple hours ago with the Novas. Sorry, I lost my place. That's why I didn't have that in there. So again, I'd have to put the adapter in, headphone adapter, and then with my Novas. And one of the favorite songs I was running was a contemporary guitar music, and this just really highlighted the Nova's qualities. Just good, full, warm sound. I will say that the iFi-Audio, I think, is a little bit more analytical, a colder sound. But when you combine this with the bass up and then the 3D and then the Novas, it's kind of 2 versus 1. So the iFi-Audio did lose out a little bit, but just a good full warm sound. And I tend to like things a little bit more on the warm side than the colder side. Just really brought out the mids and the lower mids and the bass in the Nova. What I will say briefly is no matter which setup I used, with the 3D setup turned on, it did give a little bit, to me, it opened up the sound stage forward and backwards in orientation to our heads, fore and aft. I know it's been reported that it gave a little bit better height and width, but my personal experience was that I got a little bit more fore and aft, and so I think that's just personal experience. But I did notice a difference, and it has been mentioned that with the 3D on, that it does bring out the mids and the trebles, and I believe the term that we've used the last several days on the HeadFi thread has been harsh. I wouldn't call it harsh. Again, that's probably personal experience. I would call it overly bright for my characteristics, but I do have the treble sounds, when they get too bright, they tend to bother me. I do have a bit of a hearing loss from too much loud rock and roll as a kid, but it's very tolerable to me. The bass switch, again, gives about a +6, which complemented nicely to bring out the full sound again in the Novas. I'm just very happy with this. Just a very nice unit. What I will tell you is when you do switch it to turbo, make sure you have your volume pot turned all the way down. Don't have it turned off, but make sure it's turned all the way down, because this is a huge jump and it can get quite loud if you don't. Luckily, I didn't experience that, but I could see you very easily having it turned up and you flip the switch. But just, if you're going to mess with that, turn the volume all the way down, and then mess with the red button on the side. Again, I'm going to be sad to see this go. This is just an incredible little unit. I think if I was going to make this portable as a transportable, I may or may not use the bag. but I would probably find something to put this in. With a retail cost of $549, I would definitely want to protect this. It's very well built, but still something like that, that's not something you really want to mess with. I would protect it, and I would probably, if I'm in a listening situation, I'd probably strap it on to whatever device I have. I know it looks kind of, the feel looks kind of puny on there, but I could see this pairing very well with the Cayenne i5, and I was kind of not disappointed, but just a little bit sad that I wasn't able to have them both here together. I really would have enjoyed listening to the two of them together. I'm not going to tell you how I would rate this. I'm going to make you read my review on the HeadFi site, but pretty much nothing but positive notes on this. Just quite the little piece of engineering. This is the best quality amp I've used by far, so I didn't even bother comparing it to my other ones. There was really kind of no point. I think it's slightly warmer than neutral sound-wise. I think some people have concurred with that. And again, just have fun with this. You know, that's the fun of having something like this. I would notice sometimes between songs, song to song, I would turn the 3D on and off. I'd say 90% to 95% of the time I left the bass switch up. It just filled out the Novas and the Foztecs a little bit more. They're a little bit bass shy, just a little. But this, I would go from song to song. Some songs I'd have the 3D on. Sometimes next song I wouldn't. And I just played with it within songs. It made a difference. Sometimes if a part got too hot for me, too overly bright, I'd turn the 3D off, and that kind of toned it right down. So long term, I don't see anything wearing out on this, which is good because I kind of prefer if I was going to spend that kind of money. I did not mess with anything back here other than to plug it in to charge it, and again, it will be charged. Nice long charging cable to come with this, or a USB extension which you can use. But just overall, just very, very happy, very pleased with this. I would highly recommend this to anybody looking to step up to the mid-fi amp market, or even if this was their first one, I'd very highly recommend this. I'll give you more detail about the sounds and what I listened to in my written review. Again, I'd like to thank Jared for sending this out. Timely manner, it came very well packed, and it will be on to the next reviewer. And then I'd like to thank Lawrence, just top-notch communication, stays in communication with us once or twice a week just to see how things are going, and he's very active on the thread on the HeadFi site. iFi Micro, Black Label, highly recommended. Thanks for watching this.